Colombia is located in the northern left corner of South America. It has a centralized morphology and is bordered by 5 other countries: Venezuela, Ecuador, Brazil, Peru, and Panama. Colombia got its borders by Spanish colonization. Venezuela and Ecuador, as you can see, have similar flags because they used to be all one country, known as Gran Colombia. But eventually they broke off. Colombia is the only country in South America that is connected to the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean, making them great for trade. Due to Colombia's location, it has an extreme biodiversity. As a matter of fact, about 10% of the whole world's entire biodiversity can be found here. They have many rivers, which are useful because it's the main source of energy there. They are parts of the Andes mountain range, so this contributes to the amount of raw minerals and materials here, such as coal. Colombia also has rich plains and arable land. This contributes to Colombia's strong agricultural roots and exports and allows them to grow just about anything. They are also part of the Amazon rainforest. Colombia's agriculture is mostly all subsistent due to the tremendous amount of arable and fertile land. Colombia's main exports would be rice, cut flowers, and coffee. Cut flowers are basically any flower that you can grow, cut, and sell. So when you get that rose from that special someone on Valentine's Day, it most likely came from Colombia. Colombia is the third greatest supplier and grower of coffee in the world, right under Brazil and Vietnam. The major imports of Colombia will be industrial equipment, transportation equipment, and consumer goods like phones, books, and any other thing that people enjoy for fun. The fact that none of Colombia's major imports are food means they're doing pretty well and don't have any problems feeding their people. Colombia's imports are the way they are because that they are in a higher level of development, stage 3 to be exact. So they need industrial equipment and transportation equipment from other countries who are already developed to start getting these factories and industries going. As you can see, based off of Colombia's main imports, Colombia is getting to some nice development. Colombia is a stage 3 roster or takeoff, and they have come a long way. Their GDP today is $292.08 billion, coming from coffee all the way down to the illicit drugs, but I'll get into that later. But the main makeup of Colombia's economy would be coffee. Sadly, even though they have a decent GDP, they owe about $161 billion to the U.S. in debt. This is about 48% of their total GDP. Colombia's development has come a long way, but they still have a big gap between the rich and poor. But they are working on improving it. They have a GDI of 1.004, a GII of 0.939, but they have a HDI 0.72, ranking 95 out of 188, which is not too bad. Life isn't too bad down there anymore. Since Colombia has improved its development, it has opened up secondary sector jobs. These jobs have created really bad soil erosion and deforestation all over the country. Also, the drive of development has made Colombia's main and primary source of energy hydroelectricity, all from the amazing amount of rivers they have. Now, the government of Colombia is crazy. It's definitely been through some stuff, but I'm going to try to break it down to the best of my ability so you're not watching this video all day. But hopefully the chart I made will help you follow along with this mess that I'm about to explain. But it basically all started out with the liberals and conservatives fighting about who should be in power. Then this guy named George Cartels was assassinated. So there was a 10-year civil war, but then they finally agreed to have a 4-year liberal and then 4-year conservatives, and back and forth, back and forth. But the citizens were all, no, we don't like that, so they created their own guerrilla warfare groups like M19, FARC, and ELN. But on the flip side, the military was creating their own illegal paramilitary groups who fought against the regular military and the guerrilla groups. And to make matters all types of worse, as all of this was happening, drug cartels were rising. The largest being the Cali cartel, led by the Rodriguez brothers, and the Medellin cartel, led by Pablo Escobar. If you want more information on this, I actually heard that Narcos on Netflix does a pretty good job of explaining it, and it's actually pretty good to watch. But, anyways, these cartels were so powerful, they actually were parts of the state, and they fought against each other. And they fought against the paramilitary, and the government, and the guerrilla groups, and the citizens, which created tremendous amounts of terrorism within the state, and Colombia is still to this day one of the countries with the largest amount of terrorism, even though they are doing way better than they used to be. So, yeah. I know that was a lot, and hopefully you kind of understood it, but yeah. But President Colombia tries to follow a federalist government just like us. The president is Juan Manuel Santos, and he's been in power for almost 7 years now, elected August 2010. And some supranational organizations that have helped Colombia be where it is today would be the United Nations Development Program, and the International Coffee Agreement. The amount of terrorism and violence within Colombia has tremendously affected the people and demographics of the state throughout time. That is why it's a no-brainer for violence to be the second leading cause of death here. But shockingly, the first is coronary heart disease and third being stroke. This shows that the country is in a stage 3 ETM. All of this also contributes to the state being in a stage 3 DTM. There is no specific Colombian race, and it's hard to get an actual number representation of the race there. Out of the total population, 48.3 million people, over 60% of the population is of mixed race anyway. But if we were to guesstimate, about 77% will be mestizo or white, coming from their Spanish and European roots. About 15% would be of African descent and roots, 5% would be your native Colombians or South Americans, and 3% would be your indigenous tribes and race that don't fit a typical category. Colombia's official language is Spanish. You may hear some Portuguese due to its close location to Brazil, but other than that, it's mostly all Spanish. The main religion is Catholic due to the Spanish colonizers, and clothing is just like ours. They follow the typical Westerner style of clothing, but in some parts you may find the traditional Colombian clothing, which I provided in the top left corner. Colombia's food is actually very similar to the rest of Latin America, but a typical breakfast may be calentado, which is literally translated to heated from Spanish. It is very typical for dinner to always consist of rice and beans, so if you have some left over from the night before, they just reheat it and serve it for breakfast with egg, chorizo, which is sausage, chicharron, which is like a ground beef, and arepa, which is like a type of bread, almost like a very thick tortilla. And for dinner, they will usually have a typical bandeja paisa. This consists of beans, white rice, chicharron, carne al polvo, which is chicken and steak, chorizo, egg, rice plantain, avocado, and arepa. The amount of migration to and from Colombia isn't high or low. More people leave than come, though. People who are migrating out of Colombia are Venezuela, USA, and Spain. The people coming into Colombia are Venezuela, USA, and Ecuador. Now, the top 5 cities by population are Bogota, Medellin, Cali, Barranquilla, and Cartagena. Bogota has a population of 7,840,116 people. Medellin has 2,214,494. Cali with 2,119,908. Barranquilla with 1,146,359 people, and Cartagena with 892,545 people. Doing some simple math, and you can see that Colombia does not follow the primate city rule. On this map, I've circled the top 5 most populated cities. They are located where they are because, as you can see, they are all located near major highways and intersections. Plus, Bogota is the center of the country, which is basically the central business center. Barranquilla and Cartagena are along the Atlantic coast, and Cali is along the Pacific. Bogota is the most populated city of Colombia, with almost 8 million people. It is the capital of Colombia as well, and can be known as the CBD of the state. Bogota follows the Latin American urban model, due to the crazy but organized nature of the state. It has a mix of everything just about everywhere. About the whole entire state, it consists of vertical architecture and high-density housing. But as you can see to the left, it's nothing but squatter settlements and forest. But yet, the closer you get to CBD, there are still markets and other residential places. As far as Colombia's tips for further development, I say they should decrease the gap between the poor and rich. They can maybe do this by putting jobs in areas where it's mostly poor. 2, they should grow their tertiary sector jobs. This will further development by creating jobs for everyone and making the state more wealthy. And finally, I say they should do a better job of growing their international relationships. This will die down the stereotypes that Colombia has. Other than that, Colombia is on the right road of becoming a great core country and has definitely come a long way.